I know and then every 20 years or so until the 1960s.
Emphasize, you and I did not talk about this before.
Yeah.
I just want people to understand that I keep a lot of information in my brain, and this is one of them. But I do want to make clear, I have announced that if asked to run for vice president, I would do it. However, if Kamala Harris is the nominee for vice president, I am ineligible because we are from the same state, California.
Too bad. You know, I was having a conversation with somebody about history, and I hadn't known this until recently, and they hadn't known it at all, though they're very well versed in history. The fact that General Benjamin Butler during the Civil War was
President pro tem of the Senate, and had Andrew Johnson been removed from office, he would have become president of the United States.
And even prior to that, I had not known that Lincoln in 1864 had asked him, reached out via former War Secretary Simon Cameron to be on the ticket. And how that could have incredibly changed the course of history, given how opposed Andrew Johnson was to Reconstruction, and how much he put a damper on that. Benjamin Butler, who had a very radical Republican reputation, by that time would have taken it in a very different direction. And I hadn't known until the last few months that had been the case. An amazing possibility for an alternative history that would have.
I have to tell you, I have a shelf in my library, which is 15,000 volumes, by the way. I have a shelf in my library just on Ipsit history. Exactly these kinds of moments. It's a fascinating moment. But you talk about the importance of the presidency, and I do want just to describe to you what's happening in Ukraine right now, and the murder of Navalny. And I do hold Putin responsible directly,
no doubt,
for the death. Makes for a fascinating question. Will the United States finally do the right thing and support the Ukrainians? And if not, where are the Republicans in terms of reaching out and saying, we want to help? Let me tell you, on Saturday, there will be a primary in South Carolina. South Carolina is a heavily military state. That is to say, a lot of retired military people. Are they going to vote for Donald Trump, or are they going to vote for Nikki Haley? And it's a fascinating question, because a lot rides on what the Republican Party will do. The other thing that's fascinating politically is the complete impotence of Mitch McConnell. His historical performance supporting Ukraine, doing everything he can, and he still can't overcome Republican opposition.
Yeah,
it's a fascinating testimony.
It's and I don't think anything is going to change prior to the election, given the structure of the House. I see it as a
who lost
long
Ukraine.
Shot. Yeah,
when that cry,
the Republicans in the House of Representatives and the Senate for that matter, they absolutely lost. Yeah, it's just, I mean, and then looking at what the situation is likely to be, even if Biden does win, I think it's entirely possible and probable at this point that the Senate will shift control to the Republicans, and the House of Representatives will shift to the Democrats. So you will have continued gridlock, meaning that the far right MAGA forces in the Republican Party will have the same stranglehold over these critical international issues. So unfortunately,
there's one other issue that I want to raise with you. I know we're talking about President's Day. Have we ever had a president of the United States who is now facing a $400 million cumulative fine?
He has a GoFundMe now for his $355 million fine in the business case out of New York, which I think is hilarious. He's gone to that level. Also, hawking golden Trump shoes over the week.
I know.
Incredible.
I mean, I think we should just give him the boot.
Or throw shoes at him. I'd be fine either way with that. It's just, it is amazing. It seems as if we reach a point where it is not possible for Donald Trump to have degraded the office of the presidency anymore with his actions, but he always manages to find a lower plateau. It's incredible.
How can he then be in the lead for the Republican nomination for president?
Yeah.
I mean, when Trump is done, and he will be done, the question then becomes, how will the Republican Party resolve this sordid past? Oh, I love this. Ronna Romney McDaniel is out as chair of the Republican National Committee. By the way, don't mention Romney when you're dealing with her middle name because Trump doesn't want to hear it. But who is he installing as the vice chairman of the Republican Party? Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Talk about a wholly owned Trump business. When Donald Trump Jr. said on the Ellipse on January 6th that it was no longer the Republican Party, it was the party of Trump, boy, was he right.
Yeah, I think given the recent decision that Laura Trump's presence in the upper echelons of the Republican Party machine should preclude the Republican Party from operating in the state of New York. I think that should be a corollary to the decision that was come
Can I make
through.
one other comment? And that has to do with Lindsey Graham. You know, once upon a time, Lindsey Graham was part of the Three Musketeers, Joe Lieberman, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and they stood for something. Here is Lindsey Graham now backing Trump for president and supporting his stand on Ukraine. Talk about a person who sold his soul. Yeah. One of my favorite books growing up by Stephen Vincent Benet is titled The Devil and Daniel Webster. Yes. People should read that book. What happens when a person sells their soul? And that is what I regret to say Lindsey Graham has done. It is a shocking turnaround.
It is. And it is. And he and McCain and Lieberman are shadows of the original trio in the U.S. Senate, which was, of course, Webster, Calhoun, and Clay, who in their own time I think were far more consequential in their own way and representative of what this country actually meant.
You walk into the special room off the Senate floor in Washington. You have to remember that John F. Kennedy presided over a question when he was a senator of who were the greatest senators. And he chose Webster, Clay, Calhoun, Bob La Follette, and Robert A. Taft.
Yeah.
And those five constitute the core of the greatest members of the United States Senate.
Yeah.
And I point that out because who would you call great today, for God's sake?
Yeah. There are very few names that you can bring up, very few principled stands. I mean, I would at least love to see some sort of principled stand on some side, and there seem to be very few who are willing to put themselves and their careers on the line in order to support what they know is morally right and to support the voters.
There is one
Romney
senator,
comes close in my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. Mitt Romney. By the way, we don't talk about this before we go on the air, ladies and gentlemen. We simply come to the same conclusions, which goes to show the brilliance reflected in our dialogue.
Yes. The wavelengths are overlapping. That's right.
But Mitt Romney, who I did not vote for president, was and is, well, his father would be so proud of him. I knew George Romney very, very well. And this was the kind of leadership. What's interesting, and it's an if of history, as we were talking about ifs, what if Romney had won in the election of 2012? Yeah. There never would have been a Donald Trump. The Republican Party would have been a completely different kind of party. And if I could go back in time, I voted for Obama, but I have to tell you, knowing what I know now, simply about what happened to the Republican Party, I would have voted for Romney just to save the Republican Party and the Republic from the curse of Donald Trump.
I don't know what I would have been sorely tempted. I'll say that.
Knowing in retrospect what we know now.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm glad I voted for Obama. I think he was an excellent president. But
I voted for Obama. But I voted back the first time I voted for Bob Dole. So I might have been able, especially having that knowledge of the future, I might have been able to bring myself there. But
I wish Bob Dole, for whom I had a very high regard and a good relationship, I wish Bob Dole were alive today. At the end of his life, he supported Trump. He was the only Republican leader, former presidential candidate who really got behind Trump. And I wish he were alive because I'd love to know what he'd think today.
Yeah, to see the consequences of what he and many others wrought, unfortunately. But so it goes. Many speculations and many more to come because we have so many stories to follow this election year. So many interesting things and so many fascinating discussions that you and I will have. Again, John Rothmann, the host of Around the Political World with John Rothmann, thank you so much for being with us today.
Happy President's Day. I'm trying to think which president I'm going to celebrate today, but perhaps it's good to celebrate the fact that this great republic stands no matter who is president of the United States.
Amen. John Rothmann, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Beowulf.
Thank you so much for being with us today on Facepalm America. Again, facepalmamerica.com is where you can go for more information. You can reach out to us if you want to message or call us at 202-656-6271. I want to thank Ace Elson and Rosabelle Hine for producing this show. And until next time, enjoy the day.